What really causes conflict are people. The fact that I come from a different background, I have different values and belief systems, the fact that I have an attitude that is inconsistent with your style and inconsistent with your attitudes.
Deadlines, pressures, differences of opinion. Getting along with others can be difficult, and conflicts in the workplace are going to arise. It's inevitable. So learning how to resolve conflict effectively is extremely important.
I mean, conflicts arise in anyone's life daily. It's what you choose to be a conflict. What are you going to let be a conflict to you? And what are you just going to deal with?
Whenever it's busy, whenever there's a lot of stress, the level of conflict goes up. And whenever the interaction, I mean, it's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's really how you deal with it. It's most important. We have a brand new sales force, and they live and die by their sales. They're on 100% commission right now. So if someone makes a sale in their territory and they didn't know about it, all of a sudden this comes up, it's going to bring huge tempers. And salespeople tend to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more willing to have it out verbally with people.
Most of the times when I've handled conflicts well is when I've heard of something that's happening or someone being upset and gone to them myself and addressed it immediately, as opposed to letting a situation get more manipulated or construed from the truth.
For some of the people we spoke to, dealing with conflict was easy, but for others, it took experience to learn the value of communication.
I had a conflict with a coworker. I was working at the job a shorter time than she was, and I got promoted above her. And she was really upset about it. I never took her aside. I never said anything to her. A few months went by, and she finally, I heard from other people that she was really upset with me, and I had really regretted not being open with her. When I can think of instances when I haven't communicated well, things have always led to some kind of conflict.
One of the best ways to deal with conflict is to depersonalize it, is to understand, is to get your ego out of the way a little bit, try to understand where the other person may be coming from.
Take into account what each individual's personality is like, and you don't find that out until you sit down and talk with each of them and get to know their background and get to know why they're doing what they're doing and what drives them to come to that job on a daily basis. Because once you understand where they're at in their life and their career, then you know how to handle their situations and their emotions much better.
Look at the other person's point of view, look at the situation as a whole, and then, try and go at it diplomatically, try and go at it without any feeling. Feelings usually get in the way and cause a conflict in the first place.
You keep your emotions out of it. What you feel personally at work doesn't matter. You're there to do a job. You get the job done to your best of your ability, and that's it. You start letting your emotions take control, you're going to start conflicts.
So instead of getting upset about every difference of opinion, choose your battles carefully. Consider the other person's perspective and think about what's important to you.
The biggest conflict that I didn't handle well was at work with a coworker. We had just started, and I'd been working one company, and she'd been working another company, and they ended up merging. And I ended up getting in there before she did to the right people. But she'd been working, she'd been the veteran, she'd been there the longest, she'd been working the account twice as long as I had. It caused a big controversy, and I thought, I did my job, I've got in there, being real successful here, why should I have to share? And that was the wrong attitude to have. We're good friends, we've always been good friends. She helped teach me what I was doing, and I really should have been more open, looked at the big picture instead of saying, I'm doing my job, I did what I've been told to do. I should have said, well, our job is together is to get these companies, what do you know, let's work together on this one. And so I didn't handle it well at first.
Experts tell us that there are 5 different ways to handle conflict. You can avoid it, accommodate the other person, compromise, compete for your position, or collaborate. All 5 options can be useful depending on the situation, but collaboration is the best win-win outcome, where both parties walk away with what they want.
Win-win solutions, win-win relationships require that you are willing to go beyond the obvious.
Collaboration simply means that both parties agree on an outcome that is mutually desirable. It means finding a solution that meets everyone's needs, where no one has to give up any part of what they want. Here's how to get the best results from the resolution process. Collect all the data and think it through. Clearly identify what the issue is for you. Think about the nature of the conflict. How did it arise? When did you begin feeling this way? And most importantly, why are you feeling this way? Then, approach the other person and stay calm.
Well, my first approach to solving a conflict is always go directly to the source of it. If it's a problem with a coworker, or a problem with my boss, or a problem with a client, I'll go directly to the problem first, if that's at all possible.
Calm down and go directly to that person and say, this is bothering me, I feel uncomfortable about this, or I was not happy about this. Got any ideas that can help me? So that you're not casting blame, you're not accusing, and you can put an environment where you can work on it together to solve the problem.
Next, define the problem by listening to each other. And remember, both of you must be committed to this process.
In order to figure out what the conflict is about, you have to be honest with yourself and the other person, so you need to talk it through with them. Sometimes people need to just ask themselves, well, what is my objective here and why hasn't it been accomplished? And then they can ask the other person too and share that information.
Then brainstorm. Generate as many possible solutions that you can think of, even the ones that may seem silly.
So it does mean talking to people, helping them understand, you understand what they want, and then you so how can we manage this now? How can we solve this problem? Should we just stay away from it? Should we one of us give in? Should we reach a compromise? Are we so locked in that we're going to have to fight it out? Or is there a third creative alternative? So it could be a dialogue.
Once this is done, the best solution should reveal itself to both parties. Then develop an action plan based on that solution. Figure out exactly what you need to do to resolve the conflict. Detail your plan step by step in writing, and make a commitment to the action plan. Refer to your notes. Double check to see that you're following the plan you set for yourself. Make sure you're doing what's necessary to achieve your goals. Finally, follow up. If changes need to be made, make them. Just be sure to see your plan through.
When it's working, many people will not do the follow-up. So then it can deteriorate again, and you end up with either the same dynamic or a similar dynamic. So the follow-up is important, because whether it's working or not working, you're coming back together to tweak it, to refine it, to reshape it, so that because you now have a commitment.
I'm lighthearted, I don't take things to heart, but there are times where your pride really gets stepped on. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen 9 times out of 10. It's not going to be on purpose. But dealing with it's always more difficult than if it was just a regular conflict. When it's a pride issue, you take it as a personal hit instead of, you're not contradicting my work. You're not saying I do bad work. You're saying I'm a bad person. And those are 2 different types of conflicts. It's a lot harder to deal with ones that involve your pride.
Personal issues can get complicated. So when you follow the steps to resolve conflict, try and keep your emotions out of it and approach the person rationally. Just talk to the person in private and explain what's bothering you.
Oh, no, I mean, any of the ones that I have handled poorly is when I haven't had the appropriate information and I've either gotten myself upset or said things when I shouldn't have, or tried to take control of a situation that I wasn't aware of what was going on.
You know, make sure that you can talk about it calmly, and not regret what you're going to say later, because they will come back to haunt you. So I would advise making sure that you're in emotional control, and if you're not, don't talk about it till you are.
It also helps to ask the other person for suggestions on how they resolve conflict. That way, you're not casting blame or accusing them of anything.
When I'm having a conflict with somebody, I try not to put the other person on the defensive. I don't like to accuse anybody of doing anything. I like to keep any kind of conflict in general terms, because if somebody feels like they're being attacked, they're going to strike back, and then nothing is going to get solved.
So you want to own that it's your feelings that you're trying to come up, and not blame the other person for what you're feeling or what you heard on that. Because as soon as you do, they get into the defensive position, and now you're into competing, who's going to win this conflict, rather than having an option to collaborate.
Even if your intentions are good, your attempt to resolve conflict will fail if you do it without etiquette. So make sure that you keep your emotions at bay. Look at the big picture and stay rational. Approach the other person calmly. Talk to him or her in private. Own your own feelings. Don't blame or point your finger at others. And ask the other person for suggestions. That way you can find a solution together. If your first attempt to resolve conflict fails, keep trying. Persistence pays off, and that's why follow-up is crucial.
What you don't do is you don't give up. You said, okay, contingency plan A did not work. Okay, so let's go to contingency plan B. And take it from another approach.
If I tried everything I could and I couldn't resolve a conflict with somebody, I would go, if I was at work, I would go to my supervisor. I would explain to her what was going on. I would try to be as objective as possible, telling her about it. I assumed she would talk to the other person. And then the three of us could sit down, because a lot of times you do need somebody that's out of the loop, somebody that's not emotionally involved in a situation to help everybody work it through.
If my first approach to resolving a conflict isn't the ideal one, I either go to someone above me or someone else in my field and ask for their opinion on it and attempt to take their advice, because you don't always know the correct way to handle a situation. There are different ways of dealing with things that someone else might have had the same problem and know how to guide you through that.
So, if things don't seem to be improving, attempt to follow up. Sit back down with the other person and look for additional solutions. Be creative, think outside the box, and search for innovative solutions. Also, talk to others in your field and see if they have any suggestions. If you can resolve conflict on your own, great. But when you discover that that person has to have it their way, then it might be time to call in a third party, also known as a mediator.
When the other person you don't feel is rational, or you've reached an impasse, very often mediation can be very, very helpful.
I would be open to it, because sometimes you just need a third party. You need somebody that's out of the situation to see things more clearly and to help everybody work things out.
There have been times where I've had to come between people, try and settle a conflict, and usually it's, again, you got to get past the feelings, get down to what happened, what each side was thinking, what the result should be, and then try and go that way. And even if it means going against a friend, you got to do the right thing.
Using a mediator will help to resolve your conflict in a timely manner, which means no time to blow it out of proportion or turn it into office gossip. A mediator will help you establish ground rules for handling your conflict and construct a resolution that's mutually acceptable.
I find that when a conflict arises between two coworkers, the best thing to do is to sit both of them down together and have each of them express their side of the story and then go from there. Because many times what will have happened is one will have heard something else from someone else about the other one, and they don't know the fact from each other.
What we're clear about is that if someone is locked into their way, my way, and how I see it, There has to be someone who is not involved, who can at least create the illusion of objectivity and begin to help both parties see how it's affecting them as individuals and possibly the organization.
When there's a conflict in the workplace and no commitment to solving it, it can affect the entire team. People who don't want to get involved end up involved, and sometimes it destroys relationships. So before things get out of hand, try a mediator. A mediator can either be a professional or an objective third party. Use a mediator when the other person is irrational or dead set on getting his or her own way. The mediator will help you both to see the situation clearer. Some disagreements are healthy. In a supportive environment where people feel free to air their differences, conflict can be good.
An upbeat morale will reduce the area of conflicts, and conflict is not always bad in the workplace. Conflict can be quite creative. In fact, some of the most creative people view conflict as an opportunity, as a starter of creativity.
Conflict in relationships has to be valued and not avoided, because to pursue solutions, to pursue different points of view, to look for a way of resolving conflict increases the chances that an organization or a team or a couple will actually move through the next stages or phases of their relationship.
When conflict is handled properly, it actually can be very effective in decision making. Differences of opinion help everyone to put all of their cards on the table, so collectively they can choose the best hand. Remember, when handled properly, conflict can be good. It can inspire creative ideas and actually improve relationships. When you're faced with a conflict, here's what you want to remember. Conflict is caused by differences of opinion, the inability to get along with others, pressures, and stress. Open communication and the ability to consider the other person's perspective are necessary to resolve conflict. There are 5 ways to handle conflict. You can avoid it, accommodate the other person, compromise, compete for your position, or collaborate. To successfully resolve conflict, you must collect all of the data, approach the person calmly, and define the problem together. Then you can brainstorm possible solutions, develop an action plan for the best solution, and follow through. Keep your emotions in check and avoid accusing the other person or casting blame. If your first attempt to resolve conflict doesn't work, keep trying. Ask others for help if necessary. A mediator may be needed to resolve your conflict if the other person is locked into getting his or her own way. And conflict can be good. It can spark the creative process and improve relationships. Knowing how to handle conflict in the workplace is a valuable skill. Some conflict is inevitable, and the day will come when you're confronted with it head on. So look at conflict as a chance to grow, and remember that it can result in progress or defeat. The result is up to you.